What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Scouting the Fins here on the 3 Yards Per Carry podcast. I'm joined by my co-host, Coach, and Eric. Gentlemen, how are we doing today?
We're doing well. I am getting ready and excited to talk about what is going to be one of the most storied matchups in the Dolphins-Jets rivalry on Monday night.
Man, quite the hype man there, Eric. I'm doing well also. Obviously, I have no idea what to expect with two 0-3 teams, but we do have a guest this week. It's somebody that I've gotten to know through the draft professors group, and they have some really good draft analysts over there that have their eyes on college prospects even earlier than most content creators and fans. Anthony Russo is one of the guys that if I have a college player and I want to get some high level information before I do my own film review, I reach out to him, and he's probably already watched that college player. But if you remember the movie Draft Day, when Sonny Weaver Jr. tells his scouts that they need to find that something for Bo Callahan, it ended up being his lack of character. His teammates just didn't like him. Anthony's a great guy, but his something is that he's a fan of the New York Jets. But fortunate for us, that lines up this week for us.
Yeah, we'll get Anthony on the show just in a little bit. But first, just like the Dolphins kick off the season, you need to be ready to after an accident. Your first move should be calling 305 800 pain. Better Business Bureau credit with an A+ rating. Your car accident personal injury specialist. Fast connection with trusted doctors and attorneys, always ready to take your call 24/7. Again, 305 800 pain. That is 305 800 pain. I think I need to call 305 800 pain after the last three Dolphins games because my heart just keeps getting broken and broken and broken. Uh, Today, as Coach said, we have Anthony Russo as part of the Draft Professors group. And unfortunately, he is a New York Jets fan.
Yeah, it's definitely a trait of mine that's not very popular, and honestly, I'm not even super proud of it these days. But thank you for having me on. Excited to talk some ball with you guys. Um, we talked about it before we came on, but in theory, somebody's got to win, and somebody's going to get their first win of the season, barring a tie. And if that happens, I may just go watch baseball, and that might be my new thing. So, but no, I'm excited to be here with you guys.
Yeah, so, gentlemen, let's just review what happened to the Dolphins last Thursday night against the Buffalo Bills. They were doing really, really well up until Tua Tagovailoa turning into Justin Herbert and throws the back-breaking fourth quarter interception that we all used to clown Justin Herbert for. Seems like now those Dolphins fans who wanted Justin Herbert finally do have him at behest of what most Dolphins fans want. We're not going to review the film on that. We kind of know what happened, but man, this has just been a disappointing season so far.
Yeah, I mean I feel like that's even kind of selling it short at this point. I mean, if you're taking the optimists' view, it's just that they've been in position to win 2 out of these 3 games, um, and it, I guess that's almost in a way makes it a little bit more painful because they've just done that thing that the Dolphins have done for the last 25 years or so, which is just find ways to lose games in the crucial portions of those games. You think about the interception by Tua. You think about, Devon Achane stepping out of bounds, Zach Sealer roughing the kicker. I mean, you can point to so many of these moments where the tides of the games have shifted, and it just, it's just the kinds of mental mistakes and lapses that you see from a team that really doesn't seem to have kind of a cohesive identity. And I think that's really been one of the key hallmarks of this season for the Dolphins is, this is a football team that just doesn't really know what they want to be at this point. And we're going into like 3 years of that with them.
Yeah, I agree. And like you said, Aaron, like this team just finds a way to lose the close games, to make the key play that goes in the wrong direction. And usually they kind of wait till later in the season to let that happen. But this time and this year it definitely felt like a season where the Dolphins needed to get out to a hot start, right? We really needed to be 2-1 heading into this stretch against the Jets and the Panthers to really set ourselves up for later in the season. And it obviously hasn't started that way, and really changes the outlook overall for even the most optimistic fans. I mean, I think that most people saw us closer to 500. Some saw us a little above, some a little below, right? But considering that we haven't gotten a win through 3 games, 500 is not even looking real optimistic right now.
Yeah. Well, let's get into this game plan up against the Jets. First, we're going to game plan this Dolphins offense versus the Jets defense. Let's take a little bit of a look at this Jets defensive profile, Anthony. It looks like the Jets blitz on almost 40% of their dropbacks, which is the fifth highest in the NFL. But that hasn't really paid off in terms of their pressure percentage. They're 23rd in EPA. They send the heat, but they can't finish the job. And they rely heavily on 5-man pressures. When they play up against offenses that are in 11 personnel, they blitz 5 or more rushers on 32% of their snaps with just a 26% success rate. Anthony, what's going on with with this Jets defense where they're sending their blitzers, but they can't get home?
Yeah, I think this has been sort of been a problem now for several years. I think really, other than Will McDonald, we just do not have a consistent pass rush presence on the edge. Jermaine Johnson has played pretty well as well this year, but he's been hurt. And really past those two, there's nobody that I would be too concerned with if I was the Dolphins. Like Tyler Barron, the rookie from Miami. He hasn't really done much this year. And even Quinnen, as much as I am a huge fan of Quinnen Williams, he is definitely more of the run stopper guy. So, they're sending these 5-man pressures, and I think the problem is if they don't get home, we don't have the secondary to last that long against, and going against receivers like Tyreek and Jalen Waddle this week, that could be a recipe for disaster. So I think whoever Brandon Stevens is lined up on a given play, I'm going to be very scared for. It's not going to be good. So, yeah, it's the Jets just they need someone to be able to consistently win one-on-one matchups on the line of scrimmage. And really right now, there isn't anyone that's doing that. And I think, to Will McDonald's credit, he actually had a really good season last year. He had 10.5 sacks, I think it was. So like he is your definition of a DPR kind of guy. But again, when he's not getting there, there's really nobody else that I would expect to be able to consistently get pressure. So that from that aspect, it could be a long night if the Dolphins' offensive line holds up in any sort of capacity.
All right, we'll talk on a down-by-down basis right here. Let's start off with first down, Coach and Eric. Usually the Dolphins have been more so running out of 11 personnel. We know that's been a big emphasis in training camp. They run a lot more 11 personnel compared to 21 personnel now. They're ninth in success rate on first down, especially running the ball. But they are only 31st in EPA per play and 32nd in first downs per rush. They are pretty much following their script, but they're rarely creating those explosive runs that turn into second and shorts, or second and manageables that can help set up the offense on a consistent chain moving basis.
Yeah, I think one of the stats that I saw this week leading into this game was that the Jets are allowing something like 5.8 yards per carry on inside runs so far this season, and it's ironic because I think I kind of want to see a little bit more of the outside runs from the Dolphins because I've liked a lot of what they've done out of their Pony 21 package stuff this year, where you've got Gordon and Achan, or even Gordon and Malik Washington lined up in the backfield together. I've liked a lot of that. I know that the EPA wasn't great on the run game last week versus Buffalo, but it just felt like they were getting a lot of positive momentum when they did run the football consistently. And I think that that's something that I want to see them lean into even more this week. And I don't know what it's going to take. The passing game has to get vertical at some point again. It's got to.
In terms of run direction, Eric, what you said was that you want to see them run outside more. They already run 60% of the time to the outside, which is fourth best in the league, and they're 12th in terms of EPA running outside. Now, inside, they're 29th in the league with less than a 40% inside run, but they are the best inside running team in terms of EPA.
Yeah. So, no, go ahead, Eric.
No. I mean, that definitely. I guess more so I was talking about like the package. I want to see a little bit more of that Pony 21.
The 21 with Ollie running.
Yeah. But it checks out for sure.
And the way that you were talking about the Dolphins having a high success rate but a low EPA in the running game, that makes me wonder if that's the reason that Mike McDaniel has shown an inability to stick to the running game. Right? It does seem like when they run the ball that we're having success with it, but at times Mike McDaniel just doesn't stick with it. And is that him just getting impatient that we're not getting that explosive play? And that kind of leads me into a question I had for Anthony here. Knowing what the Jets have on defense, would you be more worried on Monday night if the Dolphins came out and had moderate success running the ball early in the game, or would you be more concerned if they come out and Tua starts finding those open receivers, dinking and dunking, 90% completion and moving the ball? Which one of those concerns you more when it comes to Monday night?
I mean, I think there's a reason that before the season even started, we traded for Harrison Phillips. We traded for Juwan Briggs from Cleveland. There was a clear deficit when it comes to the middle of the defensive line next to Quinnen Williams. And I think they've played well, but I still wouldn't say it's like fixed. I mean, you just alluded to, the inside run number that you had 5.8 yards. Like that's not good. So I think the Jets need to be able to get the Dolphins in, second and long, third and long situations, because that's really the only way you're going to make, again, like the Brandon Stevens of the world. I think Tony Adams is out. So the safety position was already a problem. Now he's out. So it's even more of a problem. I'm so worried about the back end of this defense that I do think the vertical, if there is a week the Dolphins are going to get the vertical passing attack going, this might be the week to do it, because like even Sauce hasn't been, I think he's been good. easily our best corner, but still not great either. So I I think that the Dolphins really should just try to just exploit the Jets, just get like 3-4 yards on first down, however you want to do it, and you will probably be able to find success pretty easily. Because I just don't trust this Jets defense right now. I mean, we've given up, it was 34 points to the Steelers, 26 to the Bucs. The Bills, I stopped watching and I lost count how many points they had. Like this defense has just not shown up all season long. So, yeah, I would expect them to try to start with the run and try to just beat us that way, and then can try to beat us over the top with Tyreek or Waddle or whoever.
Conversely, even though early on it shows that the Dolphins are successful running in 11 personnel or that they can get some yardage, as you're saying, Anthony, the Jets defense has been really, really bad up against the pass. They are 30th in EPA per dropback given up in terms of 11 personnel, just passing wise so far. They are 27th in terms of EPA given up. So the Dolphins could look decent to really, really good when they're passing the ball. Now, the Dolphins are number one in terms of success rate. Specifically, Tua Tagovailoa is number one in success rate and passing on second and third down. Everyone remembers the Colts game. That was really bad. Got the ball moving a little bit against the Patriots. Got the ball moving really well up against the Buffalo Bills. They were sixth in EPA per play on 11 personnel on second and third down. However, what comes to this is that the Dolphins' offensive line is blitzed the 25th most, which is seventh least mathematically, if I'm doing this math right. Defenses are hesitate to put blitzers on Tua because they know they can drop back and make him make mistakes in cover two and cover three. I wonder if, Anthony, that the Jets stop blitzing on these passing downs and drop 7 or 8 people in coverage to make Tua make those same mistakes he's been making up against Indianapolis, New England, and Buffalo.
Yeah, I think that's a logical way to do it. I just, kind of going back to what I was saying before, if we do rush 4, I don't know who I would trust to create any kind of pressure in a one-on-one matchup. I guess other than like Quinnen, but even Quinnen, that's not his strong suit again. So, it's a balance of, because I do think we have seen Tua just make bad reads this year. He feels like he's not playing up to, and I've never been the biggest Tua guy, but I do feel like he has regressed a bit in terms of seeing the field, in terms of sort of just like trusting his own eyes and being able to deliver on time and accurate throws. So yeah, if the goal is just kind of cover the field and force him to find those open lanes, then sure. But I'm then worried. You've already talked about how not good our pressure rate is. If we're only rushing 4, I'm not expecting any kind of consistent one-on-one victories on the line of scrimmage. So it's a balance, but I can absolutely see that being a way to try to just make Tua beat us is a strategy I guess you could run with.
Coach, the Dolphins' offensive line, specifically the left side with Patrick Paul and Jonas Savanaia, are giving up a little bit more pressures compared to the average. It looks like on the left tackle side with Patrick Paul, it's above average of 15.4% of pressures, and Jonah is giving out above 10% of the average pressures allowed. What is going on with Jonah and Patrick Paul on that left side, where we talked about it in the vetted show on OnlyFins that it seems as if some of these mistakes are easy to clean up with Jonah and sometimes even Patrick Paul. But Tua still hasn't been able to step up properly and deliver some of these, longer, intermediate to deeper throws, which the offense's passing game has changed a little bit. There's been less RPOs, there's been less slants, there's much more deeper in breaking routes. Uh, and the passing game has changed as well. Do you think they go back to some of the stuff they were successful with an offensive line that was giving up more pressures in years prior?
Yeah, I hope to go back to some of the stuff that's been working well. Like you said, we talked about on the vetted show, the increased pressures and a lot of that having to do with, certainly Jonah and Patrick Paul have their own level of responsibility for that. But as a overall number, I think the backups on the other side have created a larger issue than what you would have. Like we talked about on there, if everybody is healthy, everybody that you expected to start is out there, then Jonah is your number 5 offensive lineman, and you're able to slide protection to his side more. And, when you do that, you kind of create a scenario where Jonah really only has to worry about the B gap, essentially. If we're sliding protection left, then you have Brewer in the A gap, Jonah's got the B gap, and then Pat Paul has everything outside of that. When you have to protect the right side because you're playing a Keon Smith or Daniel Brunskill alongside a Larry Borum, now you're putting Jonah into a one-on-one scenario where he has to be able to move and defend both the A and the B gap. And I think there was always destined to be some level of growing pains when you're bringing in, a rookie guard, and even when you look at the fact of bringing in 2 new guards, you're not going to have 2 guys from last year playing beside each other coming into this year. So I think some growing pains were predictable, but I think they've been, exponentially larger because of the backups being in there also. Jonah has not played well. I'm not going to sit on this show and try to tell anybody otherwise. But at the same time, we're 3 games in. I'm not hitting the panic button. I mean, look at Patrick Paul last year. There was numbers out there that would make the argument that Patrick Paul was one of the worst tackles in the league last year, and that clearly was not the case, and he's proving himself more so this year. But Jonah does need to find a way to pick it up soon, and hopefully the way that Anthony is talking about this Jets front 4 is an opportunity to do that, because you don't have 2 strong defensive tackles like we have the first 3 weeks. Hopefully this gives a little bit of a chance for Jonah to take a breath, to be able to slide the protection where we really need to see it, and to reduce some of those pressure numbers.
All right, and with that, we will head to break. Football is back, and Underdog is the best place to make picks and win money all season long. Playing on Underdog is easy. Just pick whether your favorite players will go higher or lower on stats like touchdowns, receiving yards, interceptions, and more. Get your picks right and you can win up to 5,000 times your cash. That's right, 5,000 times your cash. You can play with as little as $1. This week on Underdog, I'm looking at the Dolphins-Jets game and selecting Tua Tagovailoa higher than his current passing yards total that's there on Underdog. Download the app today and sign up with promo code 3yards to score $50 in bonus funds when you play your first $5. That's promo code 3yards. Millions of fans have already won billions on making picks on Underdog. Will you be next? Underdog, make picks, win money.
18 plus, 19 plus in Alabama and Nebraska, 19 plus in Colorado for some games, 21 plus in Arizona, Massachusetts, and Virginia, and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. See assets.underdogfantasy.com/web/play and get terms _DFS_.html for details. Offer not valid in Maryland, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. In New York, call the 24/7 HOPE line at 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369.
All right, and we are back. Now we're going to talk about the defensive game plan for the Dolphins up against this Jets offense. Uh, Anthony, we got to talk about this Jets offense as well. This Jets offense is also not very good, and it seems as if like the Dolphins and Jets are one of the same. Uh, they can't pretty much get anything going, and it starts with the offensive line. There's been a lot of breakdowns in terms of the left tackle protection for the Jets, and they're not picking up those slot blitzes. Feels like to me that they're struggling to adjust to disguise pressures, leading to breakdowns against speed rushes and secondary pressure that's coming through to Justin Fields and the left side of the offensive line.
Yeah, I think that's completely fair. Coming into the year, I think a lot of Jets fans, including myself, had really like arguably the highest hopes that we had for our offensive line in like maybe the past at least decade plus. Olu Fashanu on the left. We drafted Armand Membo on the right. We felt pretty good even with AVT going down with the injury. We still had pretty high hopes, and I do think I actually think Armand Membo has played very well, and I think he actually is probably our best offensive lineman right now. I think Fashanu has kind of been he's fallen off a bit. I think he played well week one, and these past couple games, it seems like he's been struggling a bit more. And I feel like this Dolphins defensive line, and we'll get into it more, I'm sure, but like this is actually a good unit. This is a good unit up front to have to deal with. So, I'm not as confident as I was in this offensive line week one. I do think they do struggle with, picking up the slot blitzes and corner blitzes that you were talking about. And Tyrod, is not, we all kind of think of Tyrod Taylor as like this, dual threat quarterback, and he is, but that's not really, he's not as amazing a runner as he once was many years ago. He is more of a guy that you need to kind of protect and let him use his sort of veteran smarts to be able to make plays down the field.
So are you saying that you see Tyrod playing over Justin Fields?
Yeah, well, I think unless I missed a health update, I think Tyrod's still gonna. I think Justin Fields is still hurt at this point. I don't know if unless I missed that he's gonna play, but Tyrod was the guy last week, so I think he's still in concussion protocol. Fields is, but if Fields is healthy, Fields is gonna play. And honestly, it's still kind of
he was a full participant.
I thought I saw that earlier today.
Okay, was good. Okay, so if Fields does play, then hopefully that opens up, because a lot, the Jets are going to want to do what they did week one. I know it was a loss, but week one we saw where Justin Fields is able to throw the ball down the field and then offer you that threat of being able to make plays with his legs and scramble. And the Jets offense looked really good in week one. When they were able to do that. So if the offensive line can hold up and give Justin Fields enough time to see the ball or see the players downfield and make those throws downfield, then it can be a productive day. But again, I need the Olu Fashanu that we had week one as opposed to the Olu Fashanu that we had last week against the Bucs, because those were two very different players.
Coach, looking at some of the data that you and I have seen with the Jets, their bread and butter is running the ball on first down, trying to stay ahead of the sticks with efficient early down runs. They are fourth in success rate when they run in 11 personnel. They're 8th in EPA per play, and they are 6th in first downs per rush. The Dolphins' run defense has been leaky, even though they have big boys like Zach Sealer, Kenneth Grant, Matthew Butler, Jordan Phillips as well. But what's going on with this Dolphins defensive line? Why can't they stop the run on these first downs and put, opposing offenses in second and long and third and long?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's still, we haven't seen the splash plays from Kenneth Grant that we expected. He was never going to be a guy that showed up big time on the box score, but I think that most of us kind of hope to see what we saw at Michigan, which is, a few splash plays here and there, along with that consistent just clogging ability. And same thing with Zach Sealer. Like, that's a guy that has historically been able to give us a few splash plays. And, when you get either of those guys making a play on first down, right now, then you're talking about that second and 14, getting into a third and long scenario. And I think that I hate to quit or keep preaching patience, but Zach Sealer has not given us any reason over the course of his career to think that he won't find his way back to the form that he was in. This is kind of unexpected from him. And Kenneth Grant, while he hasn't had those splash plays, I think he's still been playing solid. So I think as those two continue to play well together, Jordan Phillips has put some really good reps out there. I think that as the season goes on, I think that we will see them evolve into that solid interior that we expected. But right now, it just feels like the gap integrity, right, just isn't there yet, and that's something that kind of comes as you go along, especially when you've got as much of an overhaul on the interior as the Dolphins have had this year.
Yeah, Eric, this Dolphins defense, look, they run the 7th most 5-man pressures in the NFL. They ranked 30th in success rate, and in terms of blitz percentage, they are the top NFL team that blitzes, but they can't get home. And those blitzes, even though they've tried, it hasn't translated into stops. On the Vetted show earlier on OnlyFins, I brought up the stat that Anthony Weaver really does like to use his slot corners and safeties to blitz off the end. But it seems as if some of the play designs on certain situations, opposing offenses have caught on, and they're finding those hot routes, and they have adjusted really, really well. What's something that Anthony Weaver can do up against this Jets offense, especially if Justin Fields is playing and has a threat of using his legs?
It's so funny to me because I'm listening to Anthony describe the Jets, and I'm listening to Everett.
I know exactly what you're gonna say,
and I'm just like, you could just insert the Dolphins into this, and all of it applies. When you talk about the woes in the secondary, you talk about all the blitzing, but the no pressure actually getting home. To be fair, like Coach mentioned, I do think eventually the Dolphins defensive line will gel and kind of settle in. Jalen Phillips is not going to finish the season with 0 sacks. It's just not going to happen.
Never know.
Yeah.
No.
No. I'm pretty sure about that one. I think the game plan kind of looks a lot like what the Jets would want to do with Tua, and that is, I don't think you want to get too aggressive with Justin Fields in the blitz, because you don't want to over pursue and open up those running lanes. And the other thing there is if you do play back, again, you're forcing him to kind of read the entire field. You're kind of baiting him into some of those mistakes. Now, granted, that's where you can get beat in the run game, where maybe you're playing some lighter boxes. Really, my biggest fear in this game is that they remain aggressive and that we see the Mason Taylor breakout game in Miami on Monday night. That is the one thing that I do not want to happen. And honestly, if I'm just being really candid here, I'm hoping it's Justin Fields instead of Tyrod Taylor. Just please. No more Tyrod Taylor.
Do you remember what happened when
it's
Justin
2025?
Fields,
we shouldn't still have to be dealing with.
Do you remember what happened when the Dolphins played Justin Fields in Chicago? Where
I do, and I don't need Mike McDaniel politely asking him to stop playing well either. It's just either quarterback I don't really feel super comfortable against because of their mobility. And I understand with Tyrod, it's not as much as it used to be. But I think that the key defensively here is really just kind of getting back to basics and playing really kind of meat and potatoes defense. I don't think you need to rush a bunch of guys. I think this is a game where maybe you play a little bit more in base than you have all season long. The Jets, outside of Garrett Wilson, I don't really see an outside threat that really scares me all that much. In terms of pass catchers, the other thing that does kind of worry me is the backside of the backfield. I think Breece Hall and Braylon Allen both present some tough challenges in the open field, in the passing game, as well as running the football. But I think this is a game where you're going to want to drop 7 or 8 back pretty consistently into coverage and kind of just play everything in front of you. Stay disciplined, and I think generally speaking, that's where you'll get your best results.
So you're saying that they should not blitz, where the Jets' offensive line has struggled to contain the blitz.
Yeah.
I will say it contradicts everything we said, but I think your theory, if it works, does end up sounding good because the Jets' offense throws short 72% of the time, which is the 6th most. And the Dolphins' defense give up short passes 80% of the time, which is the most in the NFL. The Jets' offense, in terms of throwing short of the sticks or those short passes, which is usually less than 5 yards, are second best in the NFL. The Dolphins' defense is the worst defense in the NFL in those short passes because they're giving up a lot of space. And when those short passes do happen, opposing offenses are motioning their wide receivers or tight ends. And this Jets offense, they use the 5th most motion around 65% of the time, and they are the 10th best in terms of EPA. The Dolphins defense is the worst defense up against motion in terms of EPA. And I think that's going to be the X factor of the game where they motion Mason Taylor, they motion Garrett Wilson to scheme up and get some of these running backs open who can make the Dolphins secondary like Jack Jones, Minka Fitzpatrick, Ethan Bonner just pay in the secondary and force them to tackle. The thing is, you want to force your cornerbacks to tackle in the short field compared to your edge rushers because there's going to be a lot of offensive linemen and extra blockers on that short side. And I think opposing offensive coordinators have realized that with this Dolphins secondary. Anthony, coach, your guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I'll briefly just say I agree with everything you're saying, and I think Breece Hall and Braylon Allen are going to be the key, or one of the keys to winning this game. I think we need to establish the run with them, get that sort of, thunder lightning duo thing going, and also utilize them in the passing game. I think running 21 personnel with them should be on the table. I think you can exploit different matchups with them, both in the run and in the passing game, against this Dolphins defense. The Jets offense worked well when we got the run game going, and then Garrett Wilson. I think Eric's right. I think he really is the only legitimate threat on the outside. But if you establish the run, force the Dolphins to pack the line of scrimmage, crowd the box, bring guys up, you can win. Garrett Wilson can win one-on-one on the outside against pretty much. I would put him against pretty much any corner, maybe other than like Pat Surtain, and I'd feel pretty good about it. So I think that's the goal, and I think Braylon Allen has been pretty underutilized. I would say these past couple weeks in particular. I want to see more from him in general as the season goes on. So yeah, I fully expect the Jets to lean on their two running backs to try to win this football game, whether it is just running the ball up the middle and using them that way, or letting Justin Fields just kind of like throw some quick out routes, some quick toss routes, whatever, to get the ball in their hands and let them make plays down the field, as opposed to Justin Fields trying to find, Jeremy Ruckert or, some other random wide receiver, Alan Lazard's of the world. Like, I don't want to trust Alan Lazard to go win me a football game.
Yeah, so there's another parallel when you talk about a power back being underutilized in the offense. I think we got the same thing going on here in Miami. But to the point of how I would play the Jets, I think that probably switches from me from hour to hour depending on what I'm looking at. Because on one hand, when I look at Justin Fields as a quarterback, I would say, look, I want to cage rush him. I want to kind of contain him, not necessarily going for a sack, but keep him contained, play zone behind him, and let him make a mistake. But the flip side of that is that the Dolphins have been awful in zone. They don't work well together. They don't pass stuff off. They're carrying receivers too far, and that's what's left open a lot of those those shorter routes. So the other side of that would be that you do blitz field. You try to get him to get the ball out quickly. You lean a little more on man coverage, but then it comes into the point that Anthony's talking about with the running backs. When you do that, then you're going to get a lot of check downs to the running backs because they're the ones that are leaking out of the backfield, and you got to be able to rally up and make those plays. So I don't know what the better solution is, but I don't know. I guess that's not my problem. It's Anthony Weaver's.
Yeah, we'll finish this off by giving the X factors for both teams. I think the Dolphins' offensive line just needs to communicate well up against the Jets' heavy blitzes. The passing game for the Dolphins, they need to go back to a little bit more RPOs, those quick throws. You're asking the offensive line to block a lot longer, and it's just not sustainable right now. They need to have those quick throws. They need to have better dump offs to A-Chain. I don't want to see any more escort screens or balloon escorts as well. Just throw a hitch, throw a slant, get the ball in space, get 5-6 yards on first down, keep the offense rolling. On the defense, they just need to play better, man. They just need to play better. They need to get after Justin Fields with 4 men. And if they can't, the secondary and linebacker core really has to hold up their own in coverage so that way they can confuse Justin Fields and not let Braylon Allen and Breece Hall get hot. That's pretty much it for tonight. Stick with us here on Scouting the Fins, part of the 3 Yards Per Carry podcast, also part of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Anthony, thank you so much for being your coach. And Eric, as always, y'all, go Fins.